This is the Picky Girl Travels the World podcast, and I am your host, Adelia Aborshade of pickygirltravelstheworld.com. So, on last week's episode, we heard from Raven, who joined the Peace Corps a few years after finishing college. She'd already lived in several countries prior to that. Well, my guest this week also served in the Peace Corps in Madagascar, but she joined at age 60. You heard me right. Lisa was 60 years old, 60, when she joined the Peace Corps as a way to move abroad. I've been telling y'all that it's never too late to live life on your terms, and Lisa is living proof of that.
Like I said, I saw your post in the Black Sick Tribe group, and the first thing that struck me was your age, because I moved abroad. I moved out of the United States at 41, and I kind of felt like, ooh, I'm doing this late in life. But you've got me beat by quite a bit.
I wish that I had done it when my kids were young, so they could have experienced what it's like to live in a country without systemic racism, to live in a country where race really isn't a factor. It's such a different experience, and it's kind of hard to put into words, but unfortunately both of my kids are grown, and I can't even get them to come visit me because it's too far, So I will probably be here for several more years before they finally, I think right now, quite honestly, with COVID, I think international travel has changed forever, and it'll be interesting to see what airlines survive. I think it's going to be changed dramatically. So I don't know. It may be several years before I get to see my kids again. I don't know.
You moved abroad. Well, I'm not even going to say you moved abroad. You joined the Peace Corps at 60.
Yeah,
now,
I had seen.
We're gonna talk about that, but I'm just trying to get sort of a point of reference. What were you doing before that? What was your life like before that?
I had been a computer nerd for 30 years. I had been doing systems administration and desktop support, network support all over the Bay Area. I rode the .com wave like everybody else did. And then when the bubble burst, settling down, and had taken substantial pay cuts as an IT professional, because companies just aren't paying like they used to back in the good old days, and just trying to make my way. And as I was getting older and it was getting harder and harder to get decent IT jobs, I think my age had a lot to do with it, because I refused to dye my hair and I'm quite gray. And finally I decided, having to come up with the $8,000 a month it took to run my house was getting harder and harder each month. And I finally decided maybe this would be a good time to sell. The market was really high, and I had been in my house almost 20 years. I had a ton of equity. And so I didn't think about Peace Corps right away. I just went online and did a search for NGOs in Madagascar, because I knew I wanted to be in Madagascar. My Lees are originally from Madagascar. That's what the legend that's been passed down in my generation, in my family for generations. And so I wanted to check out the island. And so I just got a list and just started looking at them literally alphabetically. And I wanted some NGO where I could commit a couple of years. I didn't want to come in for a couple of weeks. And quite honestly, I didn't want to pay a dime. And a lot of these sites, they offer basically volunteer tourism, where you pay to go in for a couple weeks to an orphanage and work with them, or to go to a wildlife sanctuary or something. And the problem with that is you go into these like orphanages or these schools, and these kids start bonding with you. And then 2 weeks later, you're gone and they never see you again. And then another group of people come in. And I think that's not what I wanted to do. So going down the list alphabetically, when I got to Peace Corps, I'm like, oh my God, Peace Corps. When I was 8 years old, 1962, the very first Peace Corps commercial I saw, I knew then I wanted to join the Peace Corps. And I had always envisioned me out in the middle of some bush digging a well somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. So when it came time to apply, the options in Madagascar, each country has different programs. Madagascar has 3 programs: health, education, and agriculture. So ag was really where I wanted to be, but I had no experience whatsoever with agriculture. I just like to grow plants, and just I was just a home gardener, so I didn't even apply for agriculture. But I did apply for health because I was a pre-med music major, and both of my parents are doctors, and I had volunteered in several clinics. I had worked with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. I had done a lot of things that were like quasi-medical, and I was very comfortable in operating rooms and stuff. Yeah, I had had a lot of experiences, so I applied for health, and I got the job. So they hired me to come in February of 2017, and I would be working in a little hospital out in the bush with a doctor and a nurse, getting pregnant women in and helping their babies get their shots. Simple stuff. Sounded like a dream. And then the Peace Corps bureaucracy took over, and what should have been a very simple process became a quagmire, and they failed to submit my legal clearance in time for me to make the trip. So my stage, STAGE, we pronounce it stage, my stage 50 departed without me. And I was just broken because I had sold my house. I had given away everything I owned. I was leaving. I was packed. And then the night before they said, "Sorry, Lisa, we still didn't get your legal clearance," even though I had gotten 3 legal clearances, because I did a lot of computer contract work. I had worked for GoPro, iCrossing, and Twilio that year. And so I had to get because they did a lot of government contract work, so I had to get a clearance background check for all 3 of them. So I had my latest one, which was GoPro. I sent that to them. It was 7 pages saying, she is who she is, says she is, there's nothing wrong, she's fine. But they couldn't accept it because it had to be from their contractor. So finally, the people in the Peace Corps office in DC, because we had developed such a relationship, because literally every day I was calling, checking, is my clearance in? Is my clearance in? The legal department, they felt bad because they had dropped the ball. It just went on forever. So they decided, they sent me back my personal passport, because you had to send your passport if you had one, and then you also get a Peace Corps passport. So they said, when I got my personal passport back, like the following week after my stage is now in country, and I'm still here in the States, I got a call from Peace Corps that said, "Have you ever done any teaching?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've been teaching genealogy, because I was a professional genealogist also, and I've been doing that, working with adults." He said, "Well, we think we're going to move you to the next stage, which is education, and it departs in June." And that was what we decided to do. So 4 months later, I finally got on a plane, came to Madagascar, and finally realized this dream of working for the Peace Corps. And so the school where I was stationed originally here in Majenga, I started a school garden, and I brought all these seeds with me from the States, and the kids, we were watering it every morning. And I had a little hut right there on the school grounds, and I had a little garden in front and back of my apartment. And it was just so delightful. I got to get my ag stuff in there, even though I was officially in education.
What was it about the Peace Corps? You said it was something that you wanted to do since you were like 8 years old. What was it about the Peace Corps that appealed to you?
Well, I remember that image, seeing this young black kid. He looked like he was like 16, 17 years old. And he was standing there digging a shovel into the dirt. And there were some African people standing around, and they were all like working together. I don't know what it was about that image, but that image spoke to me, and it stuck with me all these years. I can picture his blue pants and the white shirt he had on. I mean, this was over 50 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of image. And you never know in life, you'll have these experiences that will stay with you, even subconsciously, because it had been so many years, I had forgotten about my Peace Corps dream. And so when I saw Peace Corps on the list that night, and I said, oh, shoot, 2 years? And they paid for my transportation, they paid for my passport, my visa, they provide housing, they provide me a monthly stipend, there's excellent health care, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, sign me up. So I immediately went online. I told everybody I joined the Peace Corps. I hadn't even applied yet. but it was already a done deal. I was manifesting this because for 50 years, this had been in the back of my brain. So the universe was finally saying, okay, it's time. And the Peace Corps and oh my God, the bureaucracy, especially coming in as an older adult. Peace Corps is designed for young white kids, fresh out of college. And so all the procedures and everything they have in place, it's designed for one thing: the safety and security of the Peace Corps volunteer, the PCV, or the training, because you have to go through 3 months of training before you swear in to be a volunteer. And so everything's designed for their safety. And so I'll just say that I got a lot of leeway from Peace Corps because of my age. Okay. I would talk to my boss or whatever, and I said, I'm not going to do this or that, or I'm going to do this when you told me not to. They're like, Lisa, we're fine. We're good. Because they knew I could take care of myself. They didn't have to worry about me.
Okay.
But it's really designed. As I said, the Peace Corps' number one responsibility is safety and security. They don't play. And unfortunately, because of that policy, they ended up moving me out of Mazanga to another site on the other side of the island against my will. But they did it to protect me. And even though I'm from Detroit and I was not afraid of my next door neighbor who had tried to kill her husband, I'm like, okay, she gonna start something, I'm gonna finish it. Come on, bring it. I mean, I ain't scared of you. She's a big girl too. I said, I ain't scared. Peace Corps said, no, Mama Lisa, because that's what they all call me, Mama Lisa. Peace Corps volunteers have been murdered for less.
Yeah.
And they said, we cannot leave, because by this time I'm 61. We cannot leave a 61-year-old woman living next to a woman who she witnessed stab her husband in the stomach to try to kill him. We can't leave her there. I mean, they made the right call, but I was still bummed because I was so happy here in Mazanga.
Well, you said that the Lees are from, that there's a familial connection to Madagascar. Now,
yeah, my grandfather's grandfather was Malagasy. His name was William Lee.
Okay, because I was going to say you were a genealogist. Was that something you discovered as part of that work?
Well, we had always been told that we were Malagasy, but we didn't know who or when or how. And I still don't know all those answers. I don't know if William Lee changed his name after he left this country. The British and the French had been fighting over Madagascar for years. And when I go through the Mazanga archives here in town, I've run into surnames like Gordon and Donnelly. Those are clearly British sounding, Anglo surnames in the marriage and the birth records. So it's not unlikely that Lee could have been his given name because there was a British officer or someone who came over and, whatever. Or he could have taken that name because you're not going to see a lot of Lees in Madagascar, but then I think a lot of the Malagasy don't even understand a lot of the history. When I start going through the old archival records, the National Archives here in Tana, which is our capital city, their records only go back as far as 1820. And my family had left. They had gotten to what would become Canada by like 1773. So they had been gone long before then. But going through those records, I was surprised how many different types of surnames that I see. I mean, the Malagasy surnames are pretty clear to determine, but then you see some others like Wang. Okay, that sounds Chinese, and some different ones. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm looking forward when our lockdown ends to going down to Tana and spending a week or so at a time, so I can go back into the archives and do some more research. I don't know from which tribe my family originated. I had DNA tests done so many years ago that 3 of the companies that I tested with are no longer even in business. And the
Oh,
tests
wow.
we did at the time are don't they don't speak the same language as the testing they're doing now. So I'd have to be retested. And quite honestly, I don't trust any of these DNA companies with my DNA right now. I mean, I've just heard of too many people, sharing with law enforcement and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
I just think that it's too lax. I just wish there were more safeguards in place. So I don't want to give them any more DNA. So for right now, I don't know from which tribe or which even side of the island my family originated. So when I quit Peace Corps last year, I knew I was going to retire here in Majenga, and that's where I am.
When you applied for Peace Corps, you were able to select Madagascar? Because I think I was always working under the assumption that it was sort of one of these things like you didn't have control over the location you went to.
Peace Corps has been around a long time, and I think they realized through trial and error that if you let people select where they want to go, they'll probably stay longer than if you just stick them anywhere. And so when you apply, you can tell them, put me anywhere, I don't care. And they'll do that. Or they give you ranked choicing, 1, 2, and 3. And for me, my choices were Madagascar, Madagascar, and Madagascar. So
There's
when I did
nothing
my
wrong
first,
with knowing what you want.
right, so when I had my first on of like Zoom, it wasn't Zoom, for some other kind of thing they used back then. Interview with them, it was verbal. They could see me, but I couldn't see them. Um, they said, "Oh, so you want to go to Madagascar, huh?" I said, "Yeah, I certainly do." And I didn't really know anything about the country. You know what? I quite honestly, I really wanted to explore the motherland. I wanted to be able to just get a car and go from Kenya to Botswana to Mozambique to DRC to whatever. Just drive and drive and drive and drive. And I said, well, let me start with Madagascar because it's an island, and let me come see it, get to know it, whatever, and then I'll settle on the mainland. But then I came to Madagascar, and this is such a magical place. People don't understand when I tell them I see magic every single day. Every day I see something new, something wonderful, something that just literally takes my breath away. Um, the people here are so kind and generous. Literally, I can walk up to any house in the country at dinner time and just announce myself and be invited into dinner, whether they know me or not. That's the Malagasy way. If you're in need, people will help you. It's just such, everybody feels like everybody's Malagasy, whether you're brown skin, light skin, straight hair, kinky hair, whatever the phenotype is, we're all just Malagasy.
I
And
have
that's
I've spoken to someone else who happened to be in the Peace Corps and was in Madagascar, and
oh
her experience wasn't quite like yours. And that makes me wonder, do you think you are welcomed the way you are? Do you think that might be a factor of your age?
oh absolutely.
Because she
Oh
was
absolutely.
she was like fresh out of college.
And yeah, and I know I'm one of the young girls in my stash. Where there was a young black girl in my stash who um, had some issues. I mean, because the guys are going to tend to hit on the girls and stuff. But I get a lot of play from young men here. I mean, a lot. I was having lunch with a girlfriend today. I said, girls, sometimes these young boys, and I know they just want one thing. They see a wealthy American, they see American, and they figure, oh, wealthy American. They just want my money. I totally get that, but it's just kind of funny to see, how some of the shenanigans and they go through and whatnot. But at the same time, they do respect me because I'm an elder. And so if I walk into some place or something and they say something, I can just start demanding that they do a certain thing or do a certain way, and they'll yield to me because I'm an elder. And it's probably my Detroit attitude has a lot to do with it too. But yeah, I think my age is a definite factor in that. Well, it may also be that when people find out that my ancestors were Gasi, and I'll bang my chest and say, "Gasi's out. I am Gasi," and they'll just kind of chuckle. But they see the sincerity that I'm expressing, that I really am claiming my heritage here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think also because of that, I have had people literally just wrap their family's entire arms around me to welcome me in. You are part of our family. In fact, my host family, when you're in Peace Corps training, you're in a town called Matasua. It's near the capital, and it's a sleepy little village. They have electricity, no Wi-Fi. No running water. But it's a really beautiful town. And the thing is, while you're there, you have a host family that you live with for 3 months, and so they feed you 2 or 3 meals a day, and then you're supposed to be talking with them, and they help you with the language, blah blah blah. I didn't really bond with my host family in Montezuma, and I'm not going to talk about the details, but my host mom from there sent me a text message today, and I wasn't going to reply to it. And I said, you know what, girl, you need to let this old stuff go. Let it go. It's done. And trying to kind of rekindle a friendship with them, because they basically took advantage of me financially. But then my host family here in Mazenga, oh my God. I literally had a dream the other night that I did a DNA test for them, and it turned out we literally are family. They have treated me really like family ever since I showed up. And my little host brother Phoebe stops by just to use my internet. My host dad will stop by when he's in the area. He picks up a beer. Sit down, have a beer, Felix. My host sisters, they come and go because they know their family. And I have never felt anything less than totally welcome with them. When I first moved back here in February, because I had finished Peace Corps last March 2019. 1st of April, I went back to the States for a couple of weeks to see the kids, and then I moved to Belize to rehook up with an old boyfriend from like 30 years ago.
And I wanna talk to you about Belize.
We can talk about Belize now.
Yeah. A lot of people think of, well, first, you go ahead and say what you want to say about Belize, because you may end up answering my question anyway.
Okay, well, Belize was not at all what I expected. It's full of expat Canadians and Americans who have come down there and brought their racist views with them. And the racism in Belize is almost as bad as it is in the United States. And then you've got this Chinese cartel that the Belizean government has made this, I think it's an under the table deal, that only the Chinese can operate supermarkets. And even the small markets in towns, they're all Chinese owned. And I've heard people say that when a Belizean tries to open up a supermarket of any kind, the government will never approve it. They have to be Chinese owned. So that's systemic racism. Then you go into the villages, everything is very, very segregated. There are a few towns that are somewhat integrated, like some of the tourist towns, but otherwise, the black folks are all here. The wealthy whites are there. The poor, the Mayans, they're all these little pockets of these different ethnic groups. And yeah, they coexist together and whatnot. You don't have police there hunting black people like they are in the States. But the racism was just as strong. And I tell you, after 9 months in Belize, I couldn't wait to get back to Madagascar.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people from the U.S., when they're looking to get out, they want a tropical beach kind of place. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's very attractive about Belize is there's no language barrier for the most part.
Right.
And what you said, because I read your post and it mentioned the racism, and I thought to myself, are Belizeans racist? But when you said white Americans and white Canadians come and they bring their racism with them, very much so.
And then they become the town council. They become the leaders in the individual villages. So their racist feelings are then spread out amongst the countryside. I mean, it's so kind of frustrating. Another thing they don't tell you about Belize is the insects. Oh my God. Oh my friggin' God. They've got these sandflies. They're invisible. You cannot see them, and they bite you like crazy. And so every day you see people out raking the sand all over because that keeps disturbing the eggs to keep the the sand fleas, they call them sand flies, population down. They tore me up, like, because they jump up like all on your legs, and then the mosquitoes there are off the hook. Now, see, I'm living in Madagascar, which is a malarial region, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mosquitoes here, they want to kill you. Okay, we got that. So you're sleeping under a net and all that other stuff. Belize has malarial and non-malarial regions, but where most people live, they're in the non-malarial regions. So they're not, they're not going to kill you, but they are there are just so many of them. And I spent so much time just trying to find effective mosquito and bug repellents, and you spend so much time before you get in bed. You got to put some on to make sure that while you're sleeping, they're not biting you. And if you have to, because I was living in a shipping container, and we had to go outside, use the bathroom in the middle of the night, and you got to go out. And, while you go out to take a leak, you're going to get bitten. Oh my God. They don't tell you about that. The insects in Belize are crazy bad. And when I came back to Madagascar, I was like, I haven't been bitten by anything since I've been back here. And like here it is right here. What's it, 7:30 right now? I've got my veranda doors open. The lights are on. If I was in Belize, this place would be just loaded with mosquitoes. I have to run into my bedroom and jump under my mosquito net.
You're not currently in Belize, so I take it that
No.
things did not work out with the ex-boyfriend.
That's a really good way to put it. And, you reach a point in your life that you just say, 30 years ago, I would have put up with this, but not anymore.
Yes, ma'am.
So I started looking at flights and to see when was the cheapest flight to get back. And I had to wait February because the flights were half price. So I stuck it out there until February. And I brought my black ass back to Madagascar as fast as I could.
What you said there, that is the beauty of being over 40, is you look at something and you're like, you know what? I don't put up with this kind of shit anymore.
Nope. I've been there. I've done that. I got the T-shirt. I'm not doing it anymore. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. I had wanted to live in Costa Rica. I said, well, Belize is close. And, like Honduras, they're very similar in terms of the climate and all that other stuff. And I'm glad that I experienced it. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. I tried to leave my mark in as many places by helping out as many people as I could while I was there. And when it was time to go, I'm gone. And I had thought that I might come back every couple of years to visit, but no, it's not. The travel is takes so long to get anywhere from here. And no, there's no reason. Because there's so many other countries on my list that I want to live in or check out.
When you were like, okay, I am going to leave Belize, did you consider any other countries besides returning to Madagascar?
No, because I never wanted to leave Madagascar. When I finished Peace Corps, I was going to stay here and retire because I was already, by the time I finished Peace Corps, my Social Security had already kicked in. So Belize was just a detour. And so the plan was to establish a home base here, have a house built here, which I started doing, and then get to Ghana, because I haven't been there yet. And, I can't wait to get to Ghana. Oh, my God, year of return and all that stuff. Build a little cottage out in the countryside somewhere so that whenever I come to Ghana, I have a place to stay. And use those as kind of like my basis to jump off from when I want to go spend a few months in Switzerland or a few months in Tanzania or a few months in Cuba, whatever. Those will always be my home base. So that's what my plan. But then COVID happened, and I have every intention of not getting on an airplane for at least another year. because the world has not done a good job controlling COVID in general, and COVID's not going away. It's not going to do like SARS and just disappear one day. COVID's going to be here for a while.
Well, and
And
I have my own theories about that. I've just read a really interesting article today which underscores the fact that COVID does not, I don't think it behaves in a way that the other um,
right,
viruses have. Like, yes, it's a respiratory
yeah,
thing, but it's the way it enters the body, the way it interacts with different receptors. It's
hmm
far more than that, and which is why, like, there's this whole range of these strange symptoms that people have, and you think, like, why are people's feet swelling, but it's a
right,
respiratory disease, because
right.
it's so much more than that. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think COVID will be gone anytime soon, and because it's just such a complex disease.
And that's a good way to put it. And because I read a lot about it constantly, and they're learning so much about it, and because they've never had this type of zoonotic virus that acts like COVID to jump into humans and to mutate so quickly, to go from human to human so quickly. They're like, wait a minute, because COVID had been in animals for countless years, no big problem. But when it jumped to humans and then allowed human to human infections, and they would just blah, we don't get it.
Yeah.
And then they're saying that it's COVID has learned how to pass through the blood brain barrier,
Yes, the
which
article I was reading this morning was talking about that.
oh my God, I've lost over 50 friends in Detroit who died from COVID.
Oh my
And Detroit
gosh.
has, I don't know if you saw this past week, Detroit Ford Motor Company paid for this wonderful tribute through this large public park in the middle of the Detroit River called Belle Isle. They had these huge photos, or maybe 4 foot by 4 foot, of COVID victims that had died in Detroit. And they had them spaced like every 4 feet with their names at the bottom. And as my friends were going through and they were taking pictures, because a lot of them, they couldn't have memorial services, they couldn't have funerals, because they couldn't meet, couldn't have, and so they never really got to grieve. And one of my high school teachers, so many of my cousins, ex-husband, his mother died, and then his best friend and his mother died. Whole families wiped out from COVID. Detroit got hit really, really hard. And it's
Wow.
my hometown. So when I see that, and then I look at Madagascar, we have 27 million people here, and about 180 people have died. So why? I mean, why has Africa, again, basically Africa's been pretty much overlooked by COVID. South Africa and Egypt got hit pretty hard. But the rest of the countries, it's just like,
Well, and my personal theory is with South Africa and Egypt, it's because of the number of people who travel from Europe, tourists, that
exactly.
sort of
And
things.
Asia, and
And
Asia, and
Asia,
Asia.
because even
Mm-hmm.
I live in Mexico City, and
Mm-hmm.
the first people who were testing positive were wealthy Mexicans who had been vacationing in Europe.
Ah,
So
uh-huh.
I can definitely see why Egypt and why South Africa would have
They
been
did
hit
hurt.
harder
Mm-hmm.
than
Mm-hmm.
other countries. Now, you mentioned that you started building a house.
Yeah, well, I kind of had to literally run away from that. I don't want to get into the details, but
I was going to
there was a
say, just share whatever you're comfortable with, because the
right.
reason I
There
ask
was
is this, because moving to Africa and building a house, that is a dream of a lot of people. So if
yeah.
there is anything that you feel comfortable sharing about your experience that might help
Okay.
somebody else, I would
Okay.
appreciate it.
I can tell you what happened without getting into gory details, and this might be useful to others. Since I already had lived here, I had established friendships with people that I knew and trusted. And one of them worked with me in the Peace Corps. He was my language instructor. He taught me how to speak Malagasy. And so the fact that I don't speak it as well as I could, it's his fault. But anyway, he's a great guy. His mother and I are really good friends. She's one of my best friends. They have a home in a middle class neighborhood called Mangarifcha. and it's right up the hill from a big hospital where the few COVID patients are being treated, and it's just like 2 blocks from the beach. Very quiet neighborhood. And they were building an apartment next to their house. And so they didn't have the money to finish the apartment. So I said, well, hey, I'll give you the money to finish it. And then when I move there, I'll just live there rent free. And then until the rent credit pays back the loan, and then I'll start paying you rent. So basically, I wasn't going to own this apartment. I was just helping them. It was basically, I was financing, finishing the construction of it. And that was to get me just to have a quick place when I first got here, and then later on go out to buy land or whatever and build my own house. Construction was going along fine, but apparently, I think the father in the situation didn't like my American ways, because the Malagasy women they're pretty much submissive to their men. And I think he had a problem with me. And so he made it clear one day that I wasn't welcome there. So I literally had to run out of there, and they're in the process of paying me back. So I'll get the money back. So it's not like it's a loss, but it was going to be my place, as long as I wanted to live there. And it didn't happen. So it's okay. I'm renting a cute little apartment, not too far from there, in the same area, in Margarita, but it's about 15 minutes away. And it's security, and I've got all the amenities at home, an American kitchen. It came furnished with everything I need. And I'll just stay here, and then once I get, I don't know, I guess I'm gonna wait. I don't know what I'm waiting on, but I'm gonna eventually build my own house out in the cottage, out in the countryside. To build a house from scratch here, just a basic cement block house, maybe 2 stories, maybe 1 or 2 bedroom, with the wire for electricity and everything, will probably cost you about $1,800 US. And this is, a small house just for like 1 or 2 people. And that's all I need. I mean, at this point, I just want to live a simpler life. So the cost of living here is so low. To give an example, I have a bike, and because our Peace Corps gave us bikes, so I'm used to biking every day. I bike pretty much everywhere I need to go. But some days, if I like tomorrow, because my Social Security came in today, tomorrow I got to go grocery shopping. I'm not going to do that on my bike because I'm going to have a whole lot of heavy groceries and things. So I'll take a Bajaj, which is a tuk-tuk. Well, to pick up a tuk-tuk, it costs me 1,000 Ariari each way. That's like 35 cents. And my utilities cost me, my water, my light cost me $15 a month. My rent cost me 280 euro, so that's like $320 a month. My Wi-Fi is kind of expensive though. My Wi-Fi is about $50 a month. But Madagascar does have the fastest internet speed in all of Africa. So living on less than $2,000 Social Security, my expenses, including food, transportation, utilities, and all this stuff, is maybe $800 or $900 a month. So what that allows me to do is to put some money in the bank, but then I can help out a whole lot of people, because there are a lot of people right now that are out of work because of COVID. And so I'm able to help a lot of people. $30 a month allows one person to be able to eat. It's amazing how far a little bit of money can go here. So I have some university students that are living on campus. School's closed, but they're on their own for food. And if I give them $30 each, they can eat for a whole month. So it's just amazing how much you can do. So this allows me to give away a lot and still save a lot and still live a really, a good life. And that's what I'm doing.
That's beautiful. How has it been different this time around living in Madagascar from when you were there before?
Well, there's no Peace Corps breathing down my neck. I always complain about the Peace Corps bureaucracy, which was just idiotic in a lot of ways. So I don't have to worry about breaking Peace Corps rules and following Peace Corps protocol. But at the same time, though, if I get sick or something, I don't have the Peace Corps medical office to back me up, because they had to medevac me when I lived here before to get me, because I had this ailment. I ended up in the hospital for a while, and I quit Peace Corps shortly thereafter. But I don't have that. I mean, I have talked to one of the Peace Corps doctors here a couple times to get some advice about different things. And the last time he said, Lise, come on, you're an RPCV now. That means that's a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I'm not supposed to be giving you support. And I say, hey, I appreciate it. But he's trying to help me out. But while I was in Peace Corps, they had referred me to one private clinic that's literally 3 blocks from my house. And so I got food poisoning twice. And then I had a fever and a cough recently. I didn't know what I thought it was actually malaria. I didn't think it was COVID. And I go to Spas Medical. They're open 24/7, and a doctor's appointment costs me $10. So even though I'm paying for my medical care, it's extremely affordable. Even with my lab tests, and all my labs cost like $20, and that's including blood and fecal samples. Every urine, they did everything. It was like $20. And so when you compare it to the cost in the States, it would have been hundreds of dollars to show up a clinic at 8:30 at night and expect to see a doctor, and the doctor sleeps right upstairs, so it's not a big deal. It's just amazing. So people ask me about healthcare here a lot, and I tell them, well, there's public healthcare, and as an American, you can afford to pay for private, and that's just how I put it. That you don't want to go to the public if you don't have to, but luckily, it's cheap enough for Americans that we can afford to pay for.
What's the biggest adjustment you've had to make since moving to Madagascar, like adjustment to living there?
No sex. Girl, I hate that more than anything. I do not like
I'm laughing because you are a woman after my own heart, so that's why I'm laughing.
And because, and I mean no disrespect, but the cultural divide between Americans and Malagasy in the bed is so great that I really don't ever want to have sex with another Malagasy man. So that's one of the reasons I want to go to Ghana, because Ghana has a big population of Black expats from the States. I said, I can find some old bro whose, wife has died or he's single or whatever. He still got his cool kid still works, he's got some moves, and we can hook up and dust off some cobwebs. So Ghana is just like, I'm going there to get some tune-ups. But surely the biggest adjustment here is that I don't get to have sex. And I really frigging hate that. I hate being celibate. I really do. But it is what it is.
I appreciate your honesty about that. I really do.
The Malagasy don't talk about that. It's a topic they just don't talk about. Even in private, they don't like to talk about it. And the Malagasy are extremely quiet during sex. I mean, extremely. You can't even hear them breathe. And because you figure you've got 20 people living in a one-room house, maybe the room's separated by curtains, maybe not. So the couples are used to mating extremely quietly. So that's the tradition. And I get that. I understand it. But if you're in my apartment and it's just the two of us, I need to hear something. And there's nothing. It's just utterly quiet. And by the same token, when the women have babies, it's the same thing. They don't make a sound. They can't even breathe hard.
Oh, wow.
And if they do, the doctor or the nurse or their midwife will shush them, tell them the ancestors didn't make a sound, so you can't either. So can you imagine going through 20 hours of labor and you can't make a sound? Yeah, it's the stoicism of the Malagasy is something I always admire, and I'm just like, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, no, I could not do that. Um,
Yeah, so that's the biggest adjustment is the lack of sex.
what advice do you have for Black women who are over 40 and they're either considering a move out of the US or just making a big change? Because I mean, even had you just joining the Peace Corps at 60, 61, that's a big deal. So if there's a woman who's listening to this and she's older and she's looking at making some big change like that, do you have any advice?
Yes, first of all, there is no age limit for the Peace Corps. The oldest ever volunteer was 95 years old. And while I was serving, there was a woman who was 87. As
Wow.
long as you're in reasonably good health, basically, if they stick you out in the middle of nowhere, they don't want to have to be sending in a helicopter every other week to medevac you. They want you, if you've got diabetes, if you've got HIV, if you've got high blood pressure, whatever. If you're able to manage it yourself with your own, and they provide all the meds and all that other stuff. If you can manage it yourself and not have to need the medical office, fine. You know that these medical conditions don't automatically disqualify you. It's the point I'm trying to make. The only thing that's required for Peace Corps, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree. You have to be a U.S. citizen and be able to pass a background check and be in reasonably good health. That's all you need for Peace Corps. They are always looking for older volunteers, and they always want women, but women of color are something that that when I was there, they were really trying to push. You have no idea how it feels to be introduced as Peace Corps, and people look at you and their eyes get big because they are expecting to see some young white kid, and this gray-haired old Black woman walks out who looks like them. And they're like, what? That feeling, it's hard to put into words. You're fighting back the tears because we immediately recognize one another. And then they see the possibilities. They see that Peace Corps is not what they thought. There's something more to it. And then what you bring to it, it's powerful, powerful thing. And I'm so glad. I'm so grateful that Peace Corps chose me, that they gave me the opportunity to spread the gospel of Peace Corps in Madagascar, because not only did it change my life, but I know I've changed a lot of lives as well. And that's why we live, to be of service to others, to help others. So yeah, Peace Corps I think is an excellent way, because that way you get paid. You're living on like $200 a month. Some countries are like less, but $200 a month here is enough to live a basic, simple life. Maybe splurge every now and then. So your housing is provided, transportation, medical care, and then every month you serve, they take a couple $100, or $300-$400, to stick that aside in the savings account. So when you separate from Peace Corps, however many months you serve, whatever's in that bank, they give it to you as a lump sum. So me leaving 5 months early because of my health issues, I forfeited 5 months worth of that little savings caddy, but I still walked away with about $8,000. And you can spend it any way you want, but it's not a lot of money. But the point is, you're not coming out of pocket for really anything.
It sounds like if you want to travel or you want to experience living in another country, and instead of having to navigate all of that yourself and figure out how to make the move happen, work on visas,
and
figure out how you're going to finance it.
Yes, Peace Corps does it all. And that's a great thing. And then some Peace Corps volunteers, especially older ones, they'll go from country to country to country. They'll just serve again and again and again.
Well, no,
they'll just spend.
I'm thinking of when you said that there was no age limit. I'm thinking like, this is if you were willing to put up with the restrictions, and not that I'm saying that they are harsh restrictions, but just, like the freedom to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. This is an awesome way to spend a part of your retirement.
It really is. And the first 3 months of training is when Peace Corps is really up your ass, because you're living in the training town. You're going to the training center every day. And, everywhere you go, people know you're Peace Corps. And if you do something wrong before you even get home, Peace Corps already knows about it. You know, it's a very small town. But once you move to site, then you get to be an adult again. And the Peace Corps policies, yeah, they're there. But like with me, when I was in Majenga, I was the only Peace Corps volunteer here for miles. So I didn't have to worry about, you know, breaking the rules of somebody seeing me, or because there was nobody else around. Even though Majenga is a large town, I just at the time I was the only Peace Corps volunteer here. So I had a lot of freedom, but you know, some don't. But a lot of the younger ones, they like all the controls, because for a lot of them, it's just the first time they've ever lived away from home. One of the guys in my stage, rather than trying to learn how to cook, he just gave a part of his monthly stipend to his host family, and forever, the 2 years he was here, he just had every meal with his host family, so he never had to cook. I said, well, that's a great, I mean, I like to cook, and I like living alone. In fact, I posted today on Facebook how people will often ask me, they ask me two questions. They ask me, where's your husband? Because in my age, there's no way I could not have a husband, because the Malagasy married for life. And when I tell them that I'm divorced twice, they're like, what? And some of the women are like, you can do that? Yeah, you really can. But they don't. What happens with the women here just suffer silently as the men go off, often have other families. There's an old wives' tale. They tell that the Madagascar's number one pastime is adultery. It really is. And you see these poor women, and they say, oh, my husband, he's got another family, and he doesn't give us any money anymore. And I'm like, well, you need to divorce his ass. You need to take him to court. And I start giving them my suggestions of what to do. Change the locks, put his ass out. You know, and I know that they will never do that, because that's not how the Malagasy women are trained. So my point is that so I see them doing this, and they go through, and they're stuck in these situations and these terrible relationships, and then they see me out riding my bike every day. So they ask me, where's your husband? And I tell them, I don't have a husband. And what I'll do, I'll kind of do a mimic where I'm taking my wedding ring off and throwing it away, and then I kick the air like I'm kicking them away. They just laugh, and I say, yeah, Ratsi babe, which means really bad. And then the other question I get is, why do you live alone? And this is what I posted on Facebook today, that they also often do it like, oh, poor thing, you live alone, as though I need condolences. And I said, you know, this is the first time in my life, Peace Corps, that I ever got to live alone. You know, growing up, one of 6 kids, I had to share my bed with one of my brothers when I was young, and I was a bedwetter, so we used to fight every day because he'd wake up wet, and you know, and there were always kids in the house. And then you go to college, you got a roommate. You get married, you got a husband, and you have kids. So all your life you're living with somebody else. So now Peace Corps, I finally got to live alone. And I love it. Oh my God, I love living alone. I love coming home and my house is just as clean as it was when I left it. I don't have to ask anybody's permission or anybody's opinion. I can just do what I want to do. So Peace Corps helped me with that, because I had never experienced it before. And for some Peace Corps volunteers, they feel very isolated and alone. But I felt very peaceful. So I guess it depends on, you know, what you're used to. But I would recommend it, as you said, to spend a part of your retirement in Peace Corps. And the great thing is, if you're already on Social Security, the Peace Corps is going to give you this little bullshit, you know, stipend. But then you got your Social Security money. I'm going to go buy a refrigerator. Okay. You know, and so my neighbors would come by just to get ice, because I had the only refrigerator in town. And, you know, that's great. It was a great experience. Oh my God, it was so great. I hated leaving Peace Corps. It was a great run. I loved it. Oh my God, I loved it. It was so much fun. And I've made some lifelong friends from it too.
I am curious. I didn't ask about this before, but I am curious, because I've never island life is like something I do for a weekend. That's not a lifestyle choice for me. So I can't really wrap my head around, like, if you wanted to, if it wasn't COVID and you wanted to purchase something like a laptop or what have you, how difficult is that to do there?
Well, if I want just a used PC laptop, I can go here in Majenga and pay 200 $225 for a decent laptop that's maybe 4 years old, running Windows 10. In fact, I just bought one for my host family, so and that's fine. If I want to get an Apple product, in Majenga, the options are extremely limited. If I can get down to Tana, which is a 12-hour van ride each way, or a 40-minute flight for 5 times the cost. If I can get down to Tana, then I can get some better computer options. But we're locked down right now, so I can't even get to Tana. And other than that, then I have to have either shipped in from South Africa is probably the best way. Yeah, South Africa is probably my go-to place for pretty much everything. I don't like to buy anything from Amazon. I'm still boycotting them from like years and years ago, and I can't even remember why I'm boycotting them, but I still am.
Well, I
You know
can give
how
you
it is.
some good reasons for
Yeah.
why to boycott them now, because that's
Right,
one of my
exactly.
struggles as well.
Okay. So the great thing is that I've been able to find, and I'm vegan too, so there are a lot of foodstuffs like nutritional yeast I can't find here in country. I have to order it in. But I found some suppliers out of Ghana and South Africa and Nigeria that I can get stuff from once our borders reopen. And that way I don't have to go to Amazon at all. And it's great because these are Black-owned companies. And so I would much rather give my money to them, to Jeff Bezos, any day. He's such a jackass. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. The way they treat their people.
So y'all are still in lockdown, like movement is restricted, businesses are
Yeah.
not open.
Correct. Businesses have to close by 1. Bars are still closed. Borders are closed. Here in Majenga, which is a resort town on the West Coast, we are not allowed to travel down to Tana. Tana and then Tamata, which is our port city on the east coast of the country, they were both in full lockdown, but just last week they released it so people could travel from Tamata back to Tana, because a lot of people were stuck there because of lockdown, but just the one direction. Now you do have like students that have to go down to Tana for, like one of my students today said he had to go to Tana or something. I said, "Oh, how are you going to get there?" He said, "Well, because they're on kind of like official business, they can get like like, for lack of a better term, a travel permit that allows them to get down to Tana, because there are checkpoints probably every 20 miles all the way down, to make sure that people are staying put." Yeah, so COVID, luckily, we haven't had that many people that would die from it. But in my opinion, the deaths from COVID, it's not the problem. The problem is the survivors, because it does so much damage.
Yeah.
People have lifelong disability, and they're not looking at the care we're going to have to provide to them. People that have brain fog, people that have.
Yep. That's the thing
Mhm.
I keep saying, and nobody is listening to me,
No,
that
I
people
know.
are left with chronic conditions.
Right.
What is it going to
Chronic.
take to treat and maintain those chronic conditions?
That's exactly the point. I've been talking about this, and you're right. No one's talking about it. I saw one article just the other day, and I put it up on my Facebook page, and it said, and he went down the list, but we thought it was just respiratory. Then we see people that are coming in that are having heart attacks. And here I was on there's every week the Africa CDC does a conference call about COVID. It's every Wednesday at 4 p.m. here, East Africa time. So that means it's about 9 a.m. East Coast time in the States. And they were showing, so Rwanda and Kenya presented about how they reopened their airports and the different steps they took. And so Rwanda put up a slide showing how many people had been, I think these were the COVID deaths. 67% were male, the rest were female, and 40 to 50% were in the age range of 20 to 40. They were young.
Yeah.
And we're expecting to see the really old. But, you know, in Africa, the really old just don't sit around in nursing homes all day. You know, they're out, the women are washing, or they're out in the yards. Even the old women, they're sweeping. I mean, they don't live sedentary lives, no matter how old they get here. So I think that's going to help reduce the number of underlying issues like hypertension and obesity and all this other stuff it's so affected the cities in the U.S. Maybe that's one reason that we haven't been hit so hard, because people are healthier here. Maybe. I don't know.
And I think, and this is, of course, I have no medical training whatsoever, but
Yeah,
I'm
right.
observant and I
Yeah.
read, you know, they talk about how it spreads. And if you live, I think, in a place where you spend most of your time inside, and there's very little natural ventilation, which, you know, like I'm from Houston, so we're all inside. We all have the air conditioner on, you know.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, you're going to see, I think, higher infection rates there than someplace where, hey, everybody's got the windows open and we spend time
Absolutely.
outside of the house.
And there is no air conditioning.
There's no air conditioning. You spend time outside because, like you said, you might have 20 people staying in a
Right.
two-bedroom house. Nobody's just
Right.
hanging out in the house.
Nobody. They're cooking outside. The
Yeah.
kitchens are eating outside.
So
Absolutely right.
those kind of lifestyle differences, I think, definitely are making a difference, and it's part of the reason why we don't see the same kind of numbers in African countries that we're seeing other places.
And I don't think anyone's looking at that either. I don't think they're really looking at the cultural differences. They're not even putting that as a part of the equation. They're just saying, well, you know, these people, they're just trying to lump them in with, well, how come they're not acting like the American dads? They're not looking at the cultural differences. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Well, Miss Lisa, I appreciate you taking time out of your evening to talk to me.
Well, you know, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that what you are doing is going to touch countless lives in ways you cannot even imagine.
I love it. I love it. If anybody is listening to this and they want to follow your journey or reach out, contact you, do you have any outward facing social media or anything like that?
Long story short, my website, gotgenealogy.com, like got milk, you know, got genealogy is the website that I've had for years, and I've just been kind of sitting there doing nothing while I was in Peace Corps. And I'm going to put get my blog on that going again. So it'll be back up. It's the website is up, but there aren't any blog posts up there yet, but there will be soon. So gotgenealogy.com is how to contact me.
Talking to Lisa was so much fun. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Keep leaving ratings and reviews on iTunes. This is a big way to support the show. As always, I've included a link to the show notes in the episode description. If you have any questions or comments, there's another link in the description where you can leave me a voice message. I really want to hear from y'all. Tell me, what do you want to hear more of? Ask a question. Okay. I'd love to hear from you. Until next week.